There is an island off the coast of Japan that you are not allowed to visit. No ferry, no dock, no trail, no public access of any kind. And if you are a woman, the prohibition isn't a rule. It's a 1,500-year-old ban upheld through Japan's cultural heritage law. The island is called Okinoshima, and almost no one in the Western world has ever seen what's inside it. Because on this island, 80,000 objects have been sitting untouched for over 1,500 years. Gold, bronze, ancient silk, coins from China, from Persia, from the workshops of Central Asia. Collectively designated as Japan's most extraordinary single national treasure. And not one living person has been permitted to see them all, because the rule that keeps everyone out is the same rule that kept everything in. The isolation didn't preserve these treasures despite the ban. It preserved them because of it. The Korean Strait, the narrow body of water between Japan and the Korean Peninsula. This is the water where Japan's naval power was born. In 1905, right here, Japan's fleet annihilated Russia's in the Battle of Tsushima, the most decisive naval engagement in modern Asian history. And in the middle of that strait, 60 kilometers off the coast of Fukuoka, sits a forested island less than a kilometer across. No roads, no infrastructure, no permanent residents. That island is Okinoshima. Except once a year. For centuries, on May 27th, exactly 200 men were permitted to board a boat and sail there. Before stepping ashore, they had to strip completely and purify themselves in the sea. When they left, they could take nothing. Not a leaf, not a stone, not a photograph. And when they returned home, they were forbidden by law from ever speaking about what they witnessed. After UNESCO listed the island as a World Heritage Site in 2017, even that limited access was suspended. Today, the only person permitted on Okinoshima is a single rotating Shinto priest, one of roughly 24 who serve in 10-day shifts, completely alone, guarding a place the rest of humanity can no longer enter. The prohibition has a name, Oiwazu-sama. The prohibition itself, not the island's name. In Shinto belief, Okinoshima is not a place where a god lives. The island is a god. Priests who have served there don't describe the silence as a restriction. They describe it as the only appropriate response to what the island is. You don't explain a god. When UNESCO made that designation in 2017, Japan's answer to the question of the women's ban was simple and immovable. The religious tradition is not separate from the heritage. It is the heritage. You cannot protect one without preserving the other. Most people, when they hear that women have been banned from a Japanese island for 1,500 years, land on one conclusion. This is old-fashioned discrimination, a relic. The kind of thing that belongs in a museum, not protecting one. The ban didn't begin as misogyny. It began as something far more total. Men weren't free either. The priests who served Okinoshima lived in complete isolation for months at a time. Contact with the mainland was forbidden. Speaking about what happened there was forbidden. When Buddhism arrived in Japan in the 6th century and introduced the doctrine of Nyonin Kensei, the ritual impurity of women, it merged with a Shinto prohibition already aimed at the entire outside world. Women were simply the category the law never revisited. Japan is an island nation. Okinoshima sits offshore in rough open sea with no dock and no landing infrastructure. The geography enforced what religion alone never could. That stretch of open water was a more effective wall than any government could build on land. The geography and the theology locked together, and for 1,500 years, the outside world stayed out. The ban was never designed to preserve anything. It was designed to keep the island sacred. The preservation was an accident of the prohibition. Between 1954 and 1971, Munakata Taisha Shrine authorized 3 controlled excavations. The first and only time outside researchers have ever been permitted to set foot on the island. Those excavations weren't a government initiative. They were bankrolled by a single man, Aimitsu Sazo, a petroleum tycoon who happened to grow up in the Munakata region and never forgot the island that watched over his childhood. What his money uncovered had been sitting there, untouched, for over 1,000 years. Objects from the 4th to the 9th centuries sitting on the surface of the island. Not buried, not locked in a vault, exactly where priests had placed them as offerings centuries ago, undisturbed because no one was ever permitted to touch them. Gold rings and bronze mirrors from the Korean Peninsula and Tang Dynasty China. Evidence that Okinoshima sat at the center of Japan's earliest diplomatic relationships. Gifts exchanged between rulers laid here as offerings to the island itself. Glass beads and decorative objects trace back to Persian and Central Asian workshops, placing this tiny forested rock inside the ancient Silk Road maritime network. A waypoint in a trading world that stretched from Japan to the Middle East. And then, objects trace back to the workshops of Central Asia itself, on a Japanese island. Evidence of a reach that nobody expected to find on a rock that the rest of the world has never heard of. No looting, no colonial-era museum transfers, no tourist erosion, no agricultural runoff. 80,000 national treasures, a complete, unbroken record of ancient East Asian trade and diplomacy. Because a rule that was never meant to preserve anything was just never broken. The UNESCO designation created an active, unresolved tension. International norms on equality pressing against Japan's assertion that its cultural and religious sovereignty defines what its own heritage means. Japan has not moved, but the pressure hasn't either. If you open the ferry, if you run the tours, sell the tickets, build the visitor center, what exactly are you preserving? The 80,000 objects survived because nothing was allowed in or out. The Shinto ritual survived because no one was permitted to watch them and go home and describe them. Okinoshima is not a museum. It is a place whose entire value depends on it remaining inaccessible. The moment it becomes a destination, the thing worth visiting is already gone. That is not a religious argument. That is a geographic one. Some places only exist because they cannot be reached. Right now on that island, a Shinto priest is on duty, alone, surrounded by 80,000 objects that have outlasted every empire that made them. Guarding a place that the rest of humanity has been permanently locked out of since 2018. Because of a rule that was never meant to preserve anything. It was just never broken. If Okinoshima opened its gates tomorrow, would it still be worth visiting? Drop your answer below. And if you want more stories about the places geography hides in plain sight, you know where the subscribe button is.